Well, today we're going to talk about my all-time favorite ukulele tune, and that is Jake Shimabukuro's arrangement of While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Now, before this session, I decided to watch the video again, and it's had over 17 million views since it was posted in the year 2006, and I'm pretty sure I'm about 15 million of those views. Not really, but I've watched this video so many different times, and really, I attribute that video to why I'm sitting here right now doing this for a living. And I really mean that. When that video came out, YouTube was pretty new. I had a friend send it to me who played guitar, and I dabbled in ukulele. And when I say dabbled, I mean I knew a few chords. I had an ukulele. It was fun. That was about it for me. And then this video was sent to me, and I just could not stop watching it. Not to go too deep into it, but I was dealing with some physical injuries at the time. I had multiple knee surgeries in high school when this video came out, and I had to stop doing a lot of things I loved. And that video kind of kickstarted everything with the ukulele for me. Watching him do that crazy, awesome strumming became an obsession of mine, and I just wanted to learn how to do that. In a lot of ways, that whole period of time, that happening then, it kind of saved me in high school. And so I'm very grateful to that song, to Jake, his ability, and kind of setting the stage for other people to follow. And so this video really means a lot to me. And so if I seem a little overexcited as I'm talking about the video, I really do attribute it to me sitting here. And so let's go ahead and talk about it a little bit. So it's had 17 million views. It came out in April of 2006. And it's really what I think put the ukulele on the map. It kind of, partially made Jake's career. I think without that video, Jake is still, world famous. But I think that definitely kickstarted it and jumped everything towards his stardom. And there's a brilliance to this arrangement that comes from a lot of different things. It's not just one piece that makes this so magical. It's a combination of multiple things. And so the way that we're going to talk about this tune is I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about a part and then play that part. We'll kind of walk through the arrangement, and I'll talk about the different things that I think is so cool about it, right? Now, the first thing is when he picks this song, he's picking a song that is obviously well known, right? While My Guitar Gently Weeps by the Beatles is a hit. But it's also kind of a secondary hit of the Beatles, right? He's not playing like I Want to Hold Your Hand or 8 Days a Week. He's playing this relatively obscure Beatles song. When I say obscure Beatles song, obviously it's not like, Wild Honey Pie or whatever. It's a hit, but not everybody knows it really well. And that's works to his advantage when he does this arrangement, because it allows him to give something that's recognizable, but not something that is so recognizable that if he changes it, it'll distract the listener. And that's, I think, a really critical step to picking a great song to do a cover of. Something that's recognizable, that people have heard before, but not something that's so familiar that people want to hear it the one way they know it. So starting off with a great song selection. Now, the original key that this song is in the key of A minor, right? And that's the original key of this song, right? He doesn't do it in A minor / A major. He does it instead in the key of C major and C minor, which is a little bit weird if you think of the standpoint of like, well, why? I've just played a little bit on the ukulele in A and it seemed to work, right? Well, the reason is because the best arrangements and originals on the ukulele utilize 4 things as much as they can. Those 4 things are the open strings of the ukulele. Because the biggest weakness to this instrument is its range, because we can't go lower than these notes, right? And it's sustain. Like a trumpet or a vocalist, we only let a note ring as long as it rings. The best way to offset both of these weaknesses of the instrument is to use our open strings. They vibrate longer than if we fret a note, and obviously they are the lowest notes that we're capable of playing. The lowest note specifically here being the C string. And so playing this song in the key of C, which is what it's done, creates a really cool opportunity to utilize this open C string a lot to create the illusion of more range of the instrument. As I'm playing melodies up here and having this played in this zone, and we get... That's a much wider sound than... Sorry. I had to review it in A for this. But you can hear that using that open C string gives this huge, cool range for the key of C minor and C major that the tune is in. But let's go ahead and start with the beginning of the song, and let's start with the intro he does. Well, he does about 3,000 different intros, depending on which version you watch. My favorite is the one off the Gently Weeps album. It's got that sort of... It's that bluesy, cool intro. He does a lot of different things, and all that he's really doing with this intro is setting the stage and setting some sort of expectation. When Jake does a more aggressive intro, he tends to play the beginning of the song just a little bit more aggressively than normal. If he does a really calm, relaxed, withdrawn intro, he tends to be more withdrawn with the start. So the intro is just kind of setting the stage and the expectation of the performance to come. And then from here, he goes right into the melody. And the melody of the song sounds something like this. Usually when he plays it, he uses finger picking, and it sounds like... I'll do it again, usually with just a little bit more activity. Now, I love this melody. It's this beautiful, haunting kind of minor melody, right? And the reason it works so well on the ukulele is what I just mentioned a moment ago. Open strings. Watch as I play. I'm going to play a little bit of the intro again, and I want you to count how many strings I'm fretting at any given time. Right? So when we think of advanced ukulele players, oftentimes we think of like full bar chords and things that are, up the neck playing. Watch very carefully. How many strings do I actually fret at a time? Now, the reason I'm stopping here is this is the first time I've fretted 3 strings. That whole intro phrase, that whole first part that I'm playing, only 2 strings are fretted at a time. And it's only the E and the A strings, leaving this C, that low, nice bass note to give us more range of the ukulele, and this G, which kind of drones, is the 5th. And everything is built kind of around that. This is going to be a theme within this arrangement, and it's what makes this arrangement sound so good on the ukulele, is the fact that he uses these open strings to create the illusion of a larger range of the instrument. It's kind of funny. It seems non-intuitive, right? Don't fret notes and you get a bigger sound, Yeah, that's how we do really good arrangements on the ukulele. We allow things to be open and it sounds big. The other thing that he does with this is he uses finger picking with this. So it creates this nice sort of rolling effect, but he also plays it much slower to start. And this is sort of creating the illusion of a literary device called the hero's journey. Now, bear with me. The hero's journey is basically... it's based off of the Odyssey, and it's going to start a hero's journey kind of at this low point. It kind of builds up to this climax of the movie and then tapers off a little bit. If you studied English, in schools in the last 20 years, you probably learned that. But anyways, this device is used in really successful movies and in songs, and that's exactly what Jake's doing. We have kind of the intro, and then we're starting the hero's journey with this. And if we start the journey with... we're kind of watching the hero already be the hero, and we don't want that. We want the hero to be like us, relatable, just, a normal person. And that's why it starts this way. And as he's doing this, he uses a lot of what's called rubato. Now, what's rubato? Well, rubato is playing with feeling, which is kind of a weak term, right? Because it's music. We're always playing with feeling. But really what it is it's utilizing timing to create more emotion. We're speeding up and we're slowing down to create this really rich sound. If I played this like a metronome going on, so if we imagine a metronome, it might be like this. That's not it, right? Instead, it's... That's rubato. That's using emotion to could kind of play off of it. And he really, really leans into it for this first section, which is really cool. So after he's played that whole first section, you notice it's this minor feel. And this song has this situation that's called parallel major and minor. It actually flips back and forth between major and minor, or rather minor to major. And after we've played this end of the first section, it goes to now this major section, where now he plays something that might sound something like this. Now, what's cool about this section is it's kind of like almost a breath of fresh air, right? It's all that minor, and then it goes into this major section, and it breathes really well. The technique that he uses is more of thumb picking rather than finger picking sometimes to create this nice sweeping effect, this more melodic sound. You can really hear that melody come through. And the chords he selects, the same deal as what he did before. He's using open strings to create these huge, amazing chord voicings. It starts with a C chord, no big deal, but then it goes up with this E note on it. All open with this. Hear how nice and big that is? Then he goes to an E minor chord. Now, if you look at a chord book, you're going to see that E minor chord played something like this up here. And let's go and listen. All right, that's really thin, or this. There's no range to it, right? That's the melody note. That's an E minor chord shape moved up. But, oh man, let's open the strings. Use the G string open, the E string open. Create that sense of range and then build the chord around it. What? 0, 11, 0, 14. One of my all-time favorite chords in the history of playing the ukulele. And listen how huge that sound is. We're playing a high G ukulele right now. And we have a range here that's ridiculous, right? We've got this low G, then we go to a B here, and then we go to a high B here. That's an octave and a third. That's pretty cool. It's not something we usually do on this instrument. And so that's why this sound is created. And then going to the next part, and then he goes down to an A minor, and he does a nice big stretch. It's funny because the stretch is hard, 2007, but it's just 2007, right? It's not like it's, 7, 13, 12, 6. It's using open strings once again to create this sound using open strings, and we get all these different vibes. And does this nice walk up. And when he does this, he's creating kind of a momentum. And what that does is it encourages the next time for it to kind of go a little bit more full through. And as he goes through, you'll see that he starts using a little bit more strumming, a little bit more of that sound, and eventually arrives at the expectation now for the next thing. And so on the hero's journey, we're kind of like, we're getting closer, right? We're moving up, right? This is the conflict has been created. And now we go back into that minor melody. And this is what's crazy is if you're wanting to learn this song, if you learn the two parts I just played, like the whole melodic sequence of the song, because this hand, the left hand, it doesn't do anything differently with the subsequent parts. I mean, you can, but it doesn't need to. I'm going to play the exact same left hand part for the next part, this thing here. But obviously I'm not going to pick it because that's not what he does. It sounds more like this. building from here. It's using lots of right-hand techniques, starting to use some double strums, maybe some flicks, some other different techniques, which, if you'd like to learn more about these techniques, check out the rock class strumming course that I did, as well as the strumming course I did on my website. Both are linked down below, where we go over all these different techniques. But anyways, with that, he's just using more of these techniques to create a larger sound, because the ukulele is a very unique instrument. All the finger picking stuff we just did, I think objectively sounds more full on a guitar, just because there's more notes to play and more notes to finger pick. I think, it's more. But a guitar, I think, doesn't sound as good strummed as an ukulele, because it's too much. When you strum all those notes, it's just, there's too much going on. But an ukulele, because of its limited strings and range, it just sounds so cool when you start doing more of the strumming. So he starts to initiate some of this strumming vibe just a little bit, giving the listener a taste of what's to come. And man, is it cool, right? But that's sort of the first battle the hero is on. Now we're going to drop off just a tad as we're going through a scene change, and we now are back to our major melody. And he puts this on so thick. Well, the first time he plays it, he might just play the melody more. This time, he's putting the full chords behind everything. It's setting something up, right? They're preparing for battle. And from here, what happens? Well, in the Beatles' original song, there's a solo, but it kind of keeps a lot of the same stuff. This is an ukulele arrangement, and the best arrangements lean into what makes their instrument unique. So we just talked about what I think makes the ukulele so unique is strumming, right? So Jake's like, all right, I'm going to strum. And this is my favorite part of the tune, like bar none, right? I mean, this is what it's all about. So what he does is really simple. He takes the beginning minor chord progression and plays it in a bunch of different ways with a bunch of different rhythms. Fundamentally speaking, it is incredibly simple. If you played this on a piano, you would get bored very quickly because you're just going to be like hitting the same note. We're not playing on a piano. We're playing it on an ukulele. And we get to use all these crazy cool strum techniques that are unique to this instrument in many ways to create this huge, awesome sound utilizing open strings, just like we talked about before. In fact, during this process, our G string is going to be open the entire time, and the C string is going to be open about 80% of the time. It's nuts how much these strings are open. And it's just going to be playing this progression here. When we play the melody, it goes. It's just those chords going through. And what's cool about that is we just play them and we add some rhythm and we get something like this. So I'm going to play the first part of the strum part, which glad I have my coffee because it's only 9:20 and this requires some warm up. All right, so it goes something like this coming off of it. So I'm stopped at the big part because I want to talk just a moment. But man, how cool is that, right? It's building. It's like they're riding into battle, going through, and everything builds from there. It takes this very simple chord progression, right? And then it expands just a little bit, creating different expectations. Until finally it needs to go to this big part, right? Now, to talk a moment about that, well, leading into that, do you see how much I had to scoot back from the microphone? I mentioned before the lesson started that microphones aren't very good at picking up sound because they want to pick up one volume of sound, which if I play that loud, it's just going to blow the microphone and it's going to sound terrible for you. Watch Jake's performance when he plays that tune in Central Park. You'll notice he actually is masterfully moving the uke And he does it in such a way where you don't even really realize it. Like, I'm not doing it very well. I'm like leaning back to make sure this microphone doesn't clip, and it looks funny, right? He's just little movements to get that working. It's just really cool. But you'll see him kind of do that as he's going through. And the first strum part is actually pretty basic with the techniques. It's using essentially down up strums, what are called ghost notes, which again, if you want more information on ghost note strumming, check out that course down below because it's my favorite technique to teach and I've got a lot of content on it. But he'll use occasional, what I call sweeps, people call like rasgados or fan strokes. And he'll be doing that with this faster strumming as he's going. And he will speed up as he's going through this, right? Because that's what we're trying to create. We're trying to create energy and sound as we go through, right? Now, from there, he goes up and goes crazy. And I'm going to play it the way that I like to play it. So I'll play kind of going into it. We'll see how this goes. But this is the climax of the song, the final battle, so to speak. And what he does is he moves the C minor chord from down here to up here. And this is magic because you have a 2-octave range between these C notes, which is just so cool, right? So I'll play kind of into that. So, oh man, I love that part so much. So what I did there is I played the fast, crazy, high strumming. It utilized what's called triplet strumming at this blazing speed and all these different techniques to create this just huge sound that really should not come from an ukulele. And to be honest, I'm not doing it justice. If you haven't seen it before, watch Jake's video because I wish I could make my ukulele sound like the way he makes his. But it's this huge, awesome sound. Now, at this point, is he playing While My Guitar Gently Weeps? Not really. I mean, it's the chord progression, but this is what makes it such a cool thing is he took a song, he paid really good homage to it, making sure that it sounded like the melody and sounded like, the song. So the people that knew the tune recognized it and were somewhere comfortable and safe. And then with this section, he went off the rails and took us on a journey that's quite, fascinating, quite amazing. And he used the ukulele perfectly for this because he used open strings. Those C and G strings ringing open, and then he closes that C string to create this sound, right? But that G continues to ring open, and when all the tension is there, it goes back to opening that string, right? It's just brilliance. And using all these crazy flamenco-like techniques adapted for the ukulele, and it's just remarkable, right? It's such a big, full sound. But while I usually end it like this, because I like just ending with the big sound, let's go back to our hero's journey for a moment, right? So it kind of came up and then it came back down a little bit, right? If you think about how movies end, it's usually not like the Death Star blows up and it's over, right? The Death Star blows up and then they do the awards ceremony. Jake gives us that sort of awards ceremony with his arrangement. And what he does is when he's so crazy up here, he then kind of goes into this sort of... He plays this beautiful part that goes aggressive strumming into the finger picking. Kind of leaves us as stasis here, right? And then he goes back through the melody. But oftentimes he adds a bass line. And then instead of ending it on the minor chord, he gives us back to this major. And And he'll do all sorts of different endings. Sometimes he goes with the, lots of different ways. My favorite's just ways sits on this chord. And goes through. But now it ended on this happier note despite all that minor stuff, which is kind of cool, right? Because the song has minor, major, minor, major, and then it does the whole strum section, which is all this thick minor, right? But at the very end, it kind of ends with that little major, that little bit of light at the end to create this really nice sound. And that's why he usually doesn't end it with that, just because that's not a good end to a story. But there you have it. There's the song kind of going through. We've got the intro, we've got through the main melody, the outro part, the strum section in the middle, which is just my favorite part again. And I'm so sorry if I've been rambling too much on this song, but I truly love Jake's arrangement of this. And I think that this arrangement is the reason I'm sitting here right now. And honestly, this arrangement is what I think about whenever I do arrangements of songs myself. I take into consideration utilizing open strings, take into consideration familiarity, but also making it your own, utilizing techniques unique to the ukulele and creating this sort of sense of a hero's journey. There's a lot of different things that kind of go into play to create this. And the cool thing is, if you had another ukulele player that studied this song talk about what they think makes it so great, it's very likely a completely different list because there's so many different things that makes this song so amazing. And so I'm going to look in the comments now and see if there are any questions. If you're watching this live and you have a question, feel free to comment it. But lots of highs here. It looks like Ricky, Zill, and Connie are all here. Great to see you guys. And Zill says, I already loved his arrangement, but you're selling it. Even the easier bits are so sweet. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, what makes this arrangement, if I had to say one thing that makes it really great, it's the simplicity of it. Now, it's not an easy arrangement, right? Easy and simple, I don't think of as the same way, right? There are lots of dishes somebody could cook that are very simple, right? 2 or 3 ingredients cooked a certain way, but it's very difficult to get just right. That's kind of what this is. It's something simple, yet difficult. And then Cindy says, LOL, I'm laughing at Matt's excitement. Yeah, I totally understand. I get very excited about this tune. When Drew asked if I could do a lesson on this, I just about fell out of my chair. Zill says, it's contagious excitement. And Cindy says, truth. Awesome. Well, I'm glad it can be contagious because this song it's awesome. Zill says, damn, that's wild strumming. Yeah, and that's, was many years of my life was just trying to work out this strumming stuff. And that's, again, why I've made courses on it. And those courses will be linked down below. You can check them out. But it does, it is a truly unique technique in my experience to the ukulele. Guitarists really struggle with playing it in the same way I struggle doing guitar techniques. But it's something special. And it's not as hard as people think it is. It's a very simple technique. It's just done fast. And that's what makes it so special. Connie says, does he play faster than the original? I have to admit, I didn't know the song before I heard him play it. And when I listened back to the Beatles version, it sounded slow and less dynamic. Fun fact, I did not know the original Beatles song when I learned this. I didn't know it. I didn't know it at all. And I discovered a lot of the Beatles through Jake, because Jake does so many Beatles arrangements that I was trying to learn. I figured, I should probably learn the arrangement, right? And so this is absolutely slower than the original to start and faster as it goes through. Remember that rubato concept, playing with feeling. He starts slower than the original, but man, when he's flying, it's much faster. And that's what's so cool. It creates that sort of arc. And the reason why the original might sound a little bit slower and less dynamic is because it doesn't have that same spread of different speeds. Cindy says, definitely seems faster. Absolutely, especially in those fast parts. Zill says, interesting. I get frustrated that dynamics don't record well, but I can try moving. Yeah, microphones suck. They are not good for recording. I don't know how Jake records that song. Maybe he's got different microphones that he leans. I don't know. But I remember when I was in the studio, it was a real nightmare to get certain songs done. In fact, I think at times my producer would actually turn down the input gain while recording just so that the microphone wouldn't clip. Nothing replaces the human ears. Cindy says, this is so interesting. I'm glad to find these lessons. Matt, you are a teacher by profession, right? Because you better be. Yep, I am a ukulele teacher by profession, actually. So I do lessons on rock class. I do some song lessons as well as these monthly live lessons. And then I also do lessons on my own. I do private lessons, which I've been doing for over a decade now, which is wild to think about. I've given something like 13,000 private lessons. So it's definitely, I've been very lucky to have a lot of opportunities to teach the ukulele. I've got my own channels on YouTube and Patreon and things like that as well. And so I'm very thankful and grateful to say that it is my job, and it has been for a number of years now. As a quick side note, I have a 5-year-old son, and over the last 5 years, I've only been teaching like 2 days a week so that I can be home with my son. And so he starts kindergarten next year, which means I'm gonna have a lot more time on my hands to make content. So stay tuned for more coming. Connie says, "Who came up with the ghost drum?" So I, so that's a difficult question. I don't know. Jake's the first player I really saw utilize it, but to be very blunt, I've never really seen it taught. I see a lot of players use it, but I never really saw people teach it. And in the world of guitar, there's a concept of ghost drums, ghost notes being kind of a drone note that's taking place in the middle. So it's kind of like that. So I started calling it ghost note strumming for that reason. And there's two reasons I call it ghost note strumming. One is because it's very similar to some guitar concepts, very different techniques, but a similar concept. And then the other thing is when I write it out, I write G. And ghost note strumming uses the G string. That's the trick. It's all about the high G. You can't do ghost note strumming on a low G ukulele. It doesn't work. It's all about that high G. So it's kind of like a little bit of a mnemonic device too, right? Ghost G. That's another reason. So I did not create the technique, but the way I teach it was one that I created to teach myself and to help other students learn how to get those sounds that players like Jake and Aldrin Guerrero and other players really, perfected. So Cindy says, "How do his ukes manage not to blow up?" LOL. Yeah, it's pretty funny. I've broken braces in my ukuleles. I've got a pick guard on a couple of them. Let's see if I can get the light just right. It's really hard to do. But there are scratches and dings all up and down. Oh, man, these Kanaleas are so good at hiding this. But I've got dings and dents all throughout here on my ukulele. This part of my fretboard wears down, literally. On my oldest ukuleles I've been playing, it's all chipped up from my nail going through. It's an extreme sport, and I will say that Jake has had a lot of ukuleles over the years, so it could be that as they start getting dinged, he moves on to another one, but they still don't compare to Trigger, Willie Nelson's guitar. If you don't know about that, Google Willie Nelson's guitar Trigger, and you'll feel better about any dings you might have on your ukes. Ricky says you could raise, lower the volume when editing your video. Is that cheating? So you can do that, but it doesn't really work very well because what happens is you can't lower something that's clips. So clipping is when more sound is going to the microphone than it's capable of absorbing. And you can't fix that. It's just, you're screwed. On my microphone, it'll light up red when I'm clipping. And it was lighting up red a little bit while I was doing the fast strumming. So what the best thing to do is have the microphone a little bit too quiet so you don't clip. But then when you boost that signal, when you turn it up, you're also boosting all of the other sound, the room noise, the in the background. So it makes it a little bit difficult. It is what you have to do, and there are ways that you can get around that using compression and limiters and all that stuff, but it is not as good as the human ear. Connie says, "Is it kind of like tribal knowledge? No one knows where it came from, but it's passed on." I guess so, yeah. And I've made my job has been trying to figure out a way to quantify it both for myself and then to teach other people. So I'm hoping that these courses will unlock it for everybody, and they can have as much fun as I am going through it. Cindy says, "It's fabulous that you're so focused on the specialness of the uke. Matt, I've never seen that before. So many people are like, why not just play guitar? You're the antidote to that ignorance." Well, I appreciate that. I am a big fan of the fact that I've got 4 fingers here and there are 4 strings here. I love the portability, and most of all, I love the limitations. I really enjoy working within limitations with things. I love like Legos, for instance. It's like I've got these blocks. What can I build with these blocks, with these parameters? And the ukulele is like a puzzle to me in that way. And what's cool is everything's so approachable, right? I can look down here and I can look down here and I can play things that go across the entire fretboard in ways that you just can't do on a guitar. And so I think if I were, if I got better and eventually mastered this thing, which will never happen, maybe I'd want to go to guitar because I want more room, but I'm pretty satisfied with the room here and working on the techniques with it. I've tried guitar a little bit and it just didn't speak to me the same way. There's certainly a lot of guitar teachers teaching ukulele, and a lot of the things do correlate and, and are related to one another, but they are different instruments and require different techniques at those next levels. Now, let's see. Are there any other questions? I'm also going to look in the Rock Class forum. So if you're watching this as a recording, I check out the Rock Class forum where there's a post made on this stuff. And if you are unable to make this live lesson, you can simply make a post in there and I'll answer that. Looks like one of the things is, I like this, should be an interesting lesson. So do you know what components are unique to Jake's arrangement that differs from the original? Makes me wonder why he made those choices. Looking forward to it. Connie. Oh, hi, Connie. So we did talk about that, right? The things that are unique to Jake's arrangement. He picked a key that suits the ukulele better because he gets to utilize those open strings more. He also used the rubato technique to create this wider sense of emotion and dynamics. And then he also created his own section based off the chords to make it uniquely ukulele and his own. Another comment here from Cinichol, Cinichol. I couldn't pronounce that if I want to. I apologize. His performance is such a trip. I noticed right off how he varies volume and tempo pretty dramatically. At least I think that's what he's doing. He is. It's amazing, too, to see the constant flourishes he brings to everything, like hammer-ons, pull-offs, and little slides. I just flashed on that old Elvis song, Love Me Tender, which is like a diametrical opposite, stripped utterly bare of flourish. I always thought it sounded kind of funny, but also sweet that way. Anyways, one question, what do you call that kind of intro he does to start? And what is that ultra-intense strumming he does later in the song? Also, how in the heck does he keep from beating his ukes all to hell? Well, that's a familiar comment there at the end, which is awesome. I don't know that he keeps his ukes beating from hell. I think he just cycles through them a little bit. And it doesn't beat it up as much as you think. But what a great comment. You talked about varies volume and tempo dramatically. That's exactly what I'm talking about with the rubato, right? He used that. So very, very good awareness. And then something I didn't mention much. It's amazing, too, the constant flourishes he brings, like hammer-ons, pull-offs, and slides. Absolutely. It's chock filled with them. And those are techniques that are uniquely ukulele. Now, guitar uses these techniques, too, but a trumpet doesn't use a hammer-on, slide, and pull off, right? A piano doesn't. These are techniques that we use as string players, as fretted string players, to create richer sounds. So he uses them heavily to create a more ukulele vibe. But to answer the question, what do you call that intro he does at the start? Depends on which one, but I mean, truly you could just call it an intro. I know that's kind of a lazy answer, but it's true. When he does the really crazy, when he does all that stuff, that's like a blues intro, you could call it, right? But sometimes he's doing an intro that's more like right? And that's just kind of an intro. And then you could describe it with whatever the technique that's being used. So like if he's doing finger picking, you call it a finger picking intro or whatever it might be. There's not really a lot of great terminology for intros that I'm aware of. And then what you would call the strumming part, the ultra intense strumming part, I think that's a fair name, ultra intense strumming part. I would just call it the climax of the song, in the same way of the hero's journey. It's like the final battle. It's the thing that you're kind of there for. And so, yeah, I with my private students, I've taught this song to many, many, many people over the years, and we've worked on arrangements that create this same sort of sound. And I always just refer to it as the epic strum part. And I think that the best arrangements on ukulele have this same epic strum part. I did a couple arrangements that are on my album Dragonfly. One of the songs is "Live It on a Prayer" by Bon Jovi, and during the song, I eventually go into this part where it just goes. The epic strum part. It's not nearly as epic as Jake's part here, right? But it was the same type of role. And then I do another song that's "Behind Blue Eyes" by The Who, which I haven't played this in a long, long time. But we did an arrangement, I think, of this tune on rock class. But I did a big strum part for this, and it actually uses the same progression as Gently Weeps. It's a really common chord progression, and so it's kind of fun because it does this sort of. I gotta remember it. There it is. Right? It's the same type of stuff, isn't it? Right? It really is that inspiration. Funny enough, I'm using the high E minor chord that Jake uses in Gently Weeps, right, for that sound of, right? But it's using a very similar type of progression. Instead of now it's going up with it when Jake went down with his. It's all the same stuff, just recycled. And, Jake didn't create those chord progressions. That's all from rock music and from different things. And pretty cool how it all kind of ties together. So sorry about flubbing that. I haven't played it in a while. I need to revisit it, but that's another example of that sort of sound. Looks like Cindy says cynical. Oh, okay. Sinichol. Cynical. That's awesome. Very cool. Well, I'm glad that answered your question, but thank you guys so much for attending today's live lesson. I, again, apologize if I talked a bit too much about this song, but Drew asked me to talk about Gently Weeps, and I was not going to say no. Absolutely fantastic tune, fantastic arrangement. I truly can say it, saved me where I was in high school at that time because I was dealing with some surgeries, had to give up a lot of stuff, and I discovered the ukulele during that time because of this video and thought, man, if I could just do that strumming part, I'd live a happy life. And then from there, it became, wow, if I could teach how other people how to do that strumming part, I'd live a happier life. And here we are. So thank you guys so much for coming. I appreciate it all so much. If you're watching this as a recording, feel free to leave a comment down below. And we do these live lessons. Right now, we do them the second Saturday of each month, but beginning in the fall when my kid is starting kindergarten, I believe we're going to be doing them on Tuesdays. Stay tuned for a confirmation of that, but just want to give you guys a heads up. So thank you guys so much. Take it easy, and I will see you all soon. Thanks so much.